Welcome back to Brave Ideas Friday 5. I'm your host, Caleb Parker, and today I'm here with my friend, one of the most innovative developers that I know in the world, Bedeir Rizk, CEO of Paragon Developments from Cairo. Bedeir, last year we met 2025 in Cannes, France, and did a podcast, and we didn't have weather like this. I thought this would be great to be in London. We're here, so let's do this conversation in Cannes weather. Since then, you guys have had a lot of progress. We've had a couple of conversations. In that podcast, we talked about big aspirations, big visions, and you've been progressing towards those. So what's happened since over the last year?
Caleb, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's such a privilege and an honor to be with you in London, right at the heart of everything that's happening and how the city is even changing over the past years. Really incredible. Last time we spoke was actually right before we signed a contract of this new development now called SumouBlvd, which spans over almost 5 million square feet, about 500,000 square meter of international hospitality, office, resi, and an amazing boulevard that kind of stitches all together. And the vision has been the same. Nothing really changed. It got actualized. So back then, a year and a half ago, we didn't have a designer. We didn't have the launch of the event, launch of the project. And now we're just at the start, right after we launched the project. And I'm incredibly overwhelmed and also at the same time happy about how everything has translated. The project, as you remember, was a $2 billion project of the gross development value. And really it's at this intersection between culture, innovation, and well-being, try to create an ecosystem right from the desert, to somewhere where people feel belonging to, which is why we're here.
It is a big vision, 5 million square feet, 2 billion GDV. That's fantastic. Super crazy. You are developing a whole city, it seems like. And I remember last year you were talking about the future of being. We talked about the future of work, and you talk about the future of being. You're here in London with this amazing weather for the Nile Expo to talk about this development. What do you want the UK market to know about Cairo in this development?
Yeah, well, a few things, right? Well, one is that the way we're developing in Cairo is unlike anything else because you develop from raw land, you develop from the desert, like I said. So the opportunities are abundance, there's less limitation than when you're doing a regeneration of a project like this, the one we have here. The second thing is that Egypt has, over the past few years, it's seen only from the macroeconomic lens. However, the city, especially Cairo, and the country overall have 70% of the population under the age of 35. There's amazing innovation, ecosystem that's being built up from the ground up, and how it's very different than also other parts of the region. So I feel the opportunities is enormous. And what we would love to see is that how would we be able to be the bridge of institutional investors into a project of the size of SumouBlvd, either on the hospitality front or the office, and how could we integrate, between those two things. And historically, the problem was in Egypt is that there wasn't enough product for institutional capital. And we believe that the project that we have at hand is the right product for institutional capital. The second part, obviously, of the story is that why our project is very special and why we could market it in London is that it's at the benchmark of the best developments, in the UK and in London specifically. When we wanted to hire a designer, we came to London. When we wanted to hire a branding agency, we came to London. And we feel there's a lot of similarities of what we're trying to do, where London is today and where we want to take it to the future. So any Egyptian or anybody from the GCC who likes London, likes the openness of London, likes this integration of the different assets and the different activities that you could plug in and out of there. SumouBlvd is exactly offering that on on a future level. So therefore, also from a consumer point of view, Egyptians who live here, or like I said, from even people from the UK who would want to have placement or even short-term rental products or the short-term investment product, they could plug into SumouBlvd. And therefore, we feel this connectivity to London City, and we feel projects like King's Cross, as an example, are, a mirror of where SumouBlvd is taking us.
Well, we are in King's Cross right now. Huge successful regeneration project for London. You see this as a parallel to what you're developing. And if you sort of look into the future, what are you taking away from what King's Cross and the success of this project has been?
Well, there are a few learnings. One of them is that the project needs to have an identity from the get-go, and every project needs to also understand its roots and where it's coming from to be able to deliver on that, on those values. So King's Cross has different values than the values that we have, obviously, but just like similar, we stated the values early on, like, so for here, it was like regeneration, was like the history, was also like this pop culture that does integrate the city together. And for us, we said, like, we want to cap it on this like young population of Egypt and the region and like have a really strong focus in innovation. And therefore we did a partnership with Plug and Play to bring in Egypt's first innovation district. And at the heart of that is an AI campus in collaboration with Schneider Electric and Orange. Like on the other side of culture, like how could we plug in culture into the project? And we're doing this amazing partnership with Mu'taz Nasr, who is the founder of Darb 1718. It's the oldest art and culture center organization, privately held. And we're doing a museum there with an art walk, And then the third pillar, which is the well-being. And with that, we're doing an integration between international hospitality brands like Antara and Hilton. And on the other side, like also with local, like wellness operators and brand providers, and try to always play that game of local and international, because only if you bring those two worlds together, then you get best in class standards, but at the same time, like really community understood products that people could connect to. And therefore, like we feel like there's this like similarity of how like a lot of the brands here are like pop UK brands, and that's how this development got activated. And that's also how we think SumouBlvd is being activated.
Well, I think it's also the youthful energy of the population there who want to be connected to the world, who love the brands, who want to grow their lives and their careers. And you're thinking about the mixed use aspect of retail, culture, resi, taking care of the wellness as well, and then commercial. So bringing this mixed use placemaking to fruition in Cairo, how is that different than what Paragon has delivered before?
Well, like we come from the office. So like when we had developed before was commercial offices, we had a good understanding of how could you integrate between office and retail basically. But like the problem with mixed use generally is that each use is a use on its own.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like the people who used like those uses want to have the best outcomes. So for the resi, they want the privacy, they want to be connected, but they still care about the security. For the office, like the care is more about the glam, how you enter, the lobby experience, also like accessibility. And for the retail, the care is about footfall, like this like hyped activity that brings a lot of people in there, and therefore allow, like the retail square meter to be able to generate enough revenue for it to be sustainable and also profitable. So like imagine when they have this conflict between each and every single use, and then how could you resolve that conflict with like a better product? I like also understanding typography is one important aspect. And you see like how like this plaza we have here feels a little bit exclusive, like it's still integrated within the development, but feels a little bit exclusive that it could be loud, like, and it doesn't really annoy the office. And with the same mindset, like what we've learned before and what we're learning now is that how could you integrate and rather than separate?
Yep.
And therefore, like King's Cross as open as it is, like you're basically coming out of a train station inside just like multi-billion-dollar development. Same thing with SumouBlvd, like it's first ungated mixed use development that's like city-like and at the same time integrates and respects every use of its mixed use. And therefore, like we think that this is like a really unique offering and a unique experience that we'd love you to see it one day, Karen.
Well, I look forward to coming to Cairo and checking it out. I've loved what I've seen so far of the designs, and I think everything you described has to be intentionally designed in a way that can integrate everything. You curate the right mix of people and uses, then it becomes something powerful. Speaking of what I've seen so far, I've been following you on Instagram, and your stories, you had like this amazing sales event a couple weeks ago. How has the market received the phase one of this development?
Which has been really incredible, above our expectations, right? We were 6.4x oversubscribed. And that for us was like really overwhelming because you're introducing two things at the same time, a really new product and a really new project, right? And the project itself, like I said, it's ungated, unlike most of the developers in Egypt. And the product itself also caters to new segment and new demographics that's not really common to buy in real estate. And the results, like spoke for itself. So within the first 12 hours, we sold $100 million worth of office and resi, and that pushed us to open up, like phase 1A extension, and that was like another $25 million within 6 hours, and then that pushed us to do another extension of another $25 million. So in aggregate, we sold $150 million worth of real estate between office and resi, equal at par between each asset class, $150 million. And for us, that was really overwhelming because few things were understood. One, is that, like having an open, inclusive development is attractive in the market. 2 is that this compact apartment and compact office where all amenities and all services are on a boulevard, like where it's fully accessible to everyone, either from the development or from outside the development, is in high demand. And therefore the ticket size of the apartments were like much smaller than what's typically sold in the Egyptian real estate market. And then lastly is the demographics. So 71% of people who bought real estate from us was under the age of 40. And that's unheard of, because usually real estate is a high-end value product. And therefore, usually people who were over 40 would buy in such products. And therefore for us, it was just like a validation. Is that if you come with a new product to a new segment, and that segment really wants what you're offering, then you will sell out, right? And for us, that was really overwhelming, and we can't wait, to release the next phase of the project of how could we integrate that young energy and young community back into the market.
That's incredible. It's exciting and very inspirational. I'm really excited to see Monopoly come to life. You guys have taken a Monopoly board and turned it into real life. But I think what the takeaway here to me is, a year ago when you talked about the future of work being the future of being, you've taken that vision and turned it into reality. And I think for anybody that's interested in new opportunities like this, we'll put a link to the project down below so they can check it out. Bedeir, wishing you much of luck. I know you guys are going to kill it. You already are. So thank you so much for taking the time.
What a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you again.
All right, man. Thank you for tuning in. Until next week, take care of yourself.